Well, it's my total pleasure. My total pleasure to be on stage with these two. It occurred to me last night in the sort of fun atmosphere of dinner how much I love this group and why it's such an important group in our lives, our GSV lives. And I think one of the common threads when I ran into Larry Berger for the first time live last night in a lot of years, and it occurred to me that many people in this room have been working at this problem for about 20 plus years, some 25 plus years if the three of us count. And it tells you that these overnight successes do take a long time. And that in education, it is particularly true that you're not going to get silver bullets, as Michael pointed out in his presentation earlier. It takes commitment, it takes fortitude, it takes energy, it takes a willingness to change the way you approach things. It's so exciting. I think about John Katzman, I think about Phyllis, I think about Mahalia Hines here in the front, I think about Larry, I think about the folks who have been at this, Jesse Willie Wilson, for 20 plus years. And that's really what it takes for us to change the projection, the forward projection for kids. So with that, I will kind of quickly give context on these gentlemen and how the quarter century mark fits for each of them. Jeb Bush was the Florida governor from 1999 to 2007. Roughly 25 years ago, he entered office. When he entered Florida gubernatorial office, and I'm from Florida, as most of you probably know, 50% of fourth graders were below the national average in math. 50% of fourth graders were reading severely below grade level, and only 50% of students graduated from high school. As we look at the system today, 25 years later, and it does take that long for the system to project. Florida is now ranked third nationally by EdWeek quarterly counts, which is from having been, I think, in the 40s when Jeb entered office. Importantly, and I'm going to have these guys talk about it, but nearly 50% of children are in schools of choice, and that's a broad definition we'll talk about. And tonight we'll hear from Ben Sass, the new president of the University of Florida. The University of Florida was just ranked #1 amongst all public universities by U.S. News & World Report. And I will tell you, that started with Jeb when he did things like the Bright Scholar, or the Future Scholars, I always get the words wrong, but putting top Florida high schoolers into the university for free. It was also about 25 years ago that John Hage started Florida's first charter school and founded Charter Schools USA, soon to be joined by his wife Sherry in this endeavor. Today, Charter Schools USA serves over 75,000 students. I promise I'll finish this speech at some point. 75,000 students in nearly 100 schools in 5 states, with the predominance in Florida. Prior to founding Charter Schools USA, John was a partner of Jeb's. He was the director of research at Jeb's Foundation for Florida's Future. One of the themes here, when you got your invitation, was revolution. And I would dare say that these two are vanguards of a revolution, a transformation, but it does take patience. So, Jeb, let me start with you. If you can kind of roll back the clock to 1999, you laid out your A+ plan for education. Can you sort of talk to the core principles, what you were inspired by, why did it work, and would it work today?
Deborah, it's great being with you. And I admire so many people in this room that are doing such important work to make sure that kids have a chance to rise up. It's not happening enough in this country, and whatever success we've had in Florida only makes me feel like we need to do more. So I'm not here to brag. I'm here to say that it is a tough journey. And I would start my journey actually with John. I ran for office in 1994 and lost. In fact, I think it was one of 3 Republicans that lost in 1994. I lost to a guy who never lost. He won every time, Lawton Childs. I think Mitt Romney lost to Teddy Kennedy. He never lost. There's a lesson there for those that want to run for office. Find bad candidates to run against. You'll have a better chance. In any case, it was a great experience, and it made me realize that I had to put a context around my ideas rather than just kind of spewing out 5-point plans. So John and I and others created the legislation for the first charter school. I partnered with the Urban League. John created the Charter School USA network with one school in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And we went off, and then as a candidate, rather than have a white paper that said what I wanted to do, which I did, I had that, but I went to visit 250 schools as a candidate, and I learned a lot. I saw the dedicated teachers that were really stuck in a bad system. I think along the way, just the cumulative effect of just being in front of people that hated my ideas over and over again, they kind of said, I don't like what you say, but I know you have a heart for this. And that's kind of the important part of moving policy. The more provocative the policy, the more you have to show that you care, that it's not some abstract thing. And so 99, after 98 saying what we were going to do, I had a great environment in the legislature, and we did exactly what we said we were going to do. It's kind of encouraging to see places like Arkansas and other places doing very similar things 25 years later, where you're not just talking about parental choice, but higher expectations, a focus on early childhood literacy, robust accountability. I think there has to be a suite of reforms for everybody to benefit. And so that's kind of, that was the initial part of the story. And Deborah, it wasn't easy. I mean, people were mad and angry. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, all the great ideas that I had were the most popular ones. Probably weren't, but we stuck with it. And we earned the respect of people that were in the system. And over time, I think once you build a platform of reform, it allows you to do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, which is another element of public policy that's important. You can't just check the box and move on to environmental policy. You have to stick with it over the long haul.
So John, you and I talked a bit before, and I think one, you acknowledged that when you and Jeb entered into your partnership together, you were a total policy wonk. He was you didn't want to go to a cocktail party with John.
Tell him about the notebook with every school choice legislation ever created or proposed. That was like,
and by the way, Governor Bush, Jeb at the time, because he wasn't governor yet, was the toughest editor ever. I mean, he had red pens, and he just marked through everything I wrote, and it got better and better. But I learned how to write better under working for Governor Bush.
Yeah, the best secret about John is he's also a Green Beret, and I think entering this work for 25 years, being a Green Beret is sort of excellent qualification. Don't you all agree? But I think what you talked about, your partnership with Jeb, and that the unique complementarity around policy wonk to implementation to accountability. Can you just talk about that cycle and how it played out in Florida and all that?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to thank Deb and Michael for doing this. I've been involved from the beginning with GSV. I am a little upset that this is called Pre-K to Gray, and that this is the Fireside Chat with Founding Fathers. Sounds like I'm very, and if you know me, I'm very sensitive. I don't tell people what I think, and therefore I'm offended, but no. So I've had to come to grips that I'm now in the Founding Fathers troop. But the truth is that Governor Bush really did lead this revolution. He won't take the credit because he's humble and he's a true leader, but I wouldn't be here, and many of us would not be able to do the work we do if there wasn't leadership at a state level that started in most cases in Florida, many other states now involved. You had Governor Bill Lee up here earlier giving credit to Florida because that is where it started. And now 50% of those kids in Florida go to some school of choice other than a traditional public school with a zip code to where they go to school. And what I was inspired by was that I was able to come work for a man who had a vision for ideas. It wasn't about the politics. Politics was a means to an end. It was the ideas to change the face of communities, and especially communities of color. I remember going into the area of Liberty City with Governor Bush and the head of the Urban League. Two different parties, different backgrounds, and going in and focusing on students and families where those kids had no other option no other option but to go to a failing school. And when we gave them a charter school and they walked in with their uniforms every day, and those grandmothers and parents and others were there with them to show love, and they were so proud, and they were going to hold them to account, it was transformational. And I know that Governor Bush had that feeling, I had that feeling, and honestly, it's like one of those things in your life, once you experience something so transformational, you literally, we've made it our life's work. My wife and I, and everything we've done for 25 years has been focused on implementing higher performing educational options for all families of all backgrounds across this country. And that's good work. That's good work to be a part of. So I just want to thank the governor. It's an honor even to be up here on the stage with him.
Fabulous. But you also talked, so I mean, wind this in too, about the importance of an entrepreneurial element around implement. I mean, when you transformed from policy wonk to entrepreneur and continued to partner with Jeb, how transformative that was in making the work go from policy to practice. So.
Yeah, and I think this is something we can all learn from, and it's something we've had a chance as well. My wife and I have had a lot of opportunities. She runs a dynamic non-for-profit called Noble Education right here in Tennessee, and worked closely with the governor and his team on this as well. And that is that if you lay out the policies and you don't have people who are willing to implement it, to invest capital, to invest time, resources, energy, to put their effort into it, like most of you in some form are related to that, then you don't have the execution that's necessary for those policies to implement. And all policymakers will tell you the same thing. They can write great legislation, they can put in place incentives, they can set up systems that hopefully will inspire people to put their life's work into it, to invest in the technologies, the innovations, but also to take risk, right? That's what the private sector must do. And that, I think, has been really, part of the success in Florida, is that you had not just me, but others who all said, you know what, the governor and legislative leaders and others put forth policies, and then they put those into law, but then someone had to execute on them. And every year since then, I will tell you, Florida has been a representation of continuous improvement. It's not that the first step was perfect. There were mistakes, there were changes, challenges, and the governor can tell you that, because every year there was a constant model of how do we make this better. I mean, we're just now, 25 years later, getting to funding equity slowly between public charter schools and traditional schools. Even when we passed the original legislation, there was compromises. There were people who were going to say, we're not going to give you but 60 cents on the dollar. Well, if you run a school and you're only getting 60 cents on the dollar, it's very difficult for you to compete when someone's got 100% of that funding and do a better job. So it has taken 25 years, but the groundwork was laid, and then there has to be people who put their effort into it every year and then come back and feed that and fund that. And quite frankly, fund and finance against the haters, because every year the haters, so to speak, come in and they want to stop that reform.
Jeb, in just reading some of your recent interviews and things, you talk a lot about being radicalized by the current state of, the current weak state of the education system, and combined with the seeming triumph of complete partisanship. Can you sort of, that and curing cancer. Can you speak to how you're thinking about that, how you're thinking about system change if we go forward 10 years?
Yeah. I would say, first of all, I'm an impatient person. I've always been impatient. The fact that it's taken so long isn't because we've been patient at all. I think we need to be a lot less patient and a lot more ornery about the fact that kids are being left behind. I mean, no matter what we did go from 29th out of 31 on the 4th grade NAEP test to 6th out of 50. Our Hispanic kids, black kids, low-income kids, kids with learning disabilities, all in the top 5 to 10 every year. I mean, those are great numbers, and I'm certainly proud of that effort. But there are a ton of kids in Florida, maybe less than in some other places, that are being totally left behind. And the world we're moving towards requires skills that are dramatically different than 1999. So I'd like to see people marching in the streets for this. rather than all the other stupid stuff that people are marching in the streets right now. Why are people angry about this incredibly poor outcome? And many of you are working in this area to try to rectify it, but we need systemic change. And so I guess in that sense I'm radicalized. And I know for a fact if you have high expectations for every kid and you put the resources where they need to go to make sure that struggling children particularly get the attention they deserve, God's given them the ability to learn. And you can see that in John's schools. You can see it. There are great success stories across the world. But we need systemic change to really make it the norm. It should be expected that kids are grade level readers by the end of third grade. And God damn, man, it's just not happening at the pace we need. And so, you know, I'm 70 years old. I've been doing this. I'm older than dirt. I created Floridians for Educational Choice in 1991 with Tom Feeney, a State House member. And our first event was in rural Fort Myers, and we brought Polly Williams down, the State House member that created the first voucher program in Wisconsin. And that's a long time to be struggling with this. And I hope and pray that members of, leaders in policy making, irrespective of whether they're liberal or conservative, realize that this should be the highest priority. And focusing on the adults in the system is not going to yield the results that we need.
So if you had, your top list, is it accountability? Is it, focus on lifelong learning? What are the sort of the key dramatic changes you would make? Well,
it starts with a pre-K to 3 literacy strategy. Mississippi now is the model. That it's not a miracle. It's not a Mississippi miracle because it took a lot of work, but in a relatively short period of time, Mississippi went from, everybody would say, thank God for Mississippi, to above the national average on the 4th grade reading test. Kids, 70% low, free and reduced lunch students. All the mythology around how particularly low-income kids can't learn has been shattered in Mississippi. And
following the Florida model.
Following the Florida model. There's a command focus on ending social promotion in 3rd grade and a real focus on training teachers on the science of reading and making it the highest priority for the early grades is number 1. Number 2 is real accountability. Every chance that policymakers have to lower cut scores or make sure everybody's, we were the first state to grade schools A through F. There are a ton of kids, there's like almost every school is an A and B in Florida, and you can have a school that's rated A where 50% of the kids are below basic readers. So over time, atrophy sets in unless you continually raise the bar. So real accountability, which is, a lot of people get all upset about that because somehow they think it's not fair. Oregon, for example, in an just outrageous decision, has prolonged the ability to have a graduation test because it's not equitable. That is total BS. Think how many kids in urban Portland or in rural Oregon are not going to have a chance to go to college or not have a chance to gain the skills necessary to get a job because some progressive idiot is now saying that it's not fair to have high expectations for every kid. The net result of that is you're going to have shattered dreams. And that was announced yesterday. This is the fight that's going on. So real accountability is important. Empowering parents to make them informed consumers for an abundance of choices, and here I'm proud that Florida is probably the leader. Miami-Dade County, which is the 3rd largest school district, 70% of the parents choose their kid's school. And by all accounts, in terms of big urban school districts, with 70% free and reduced lunch in Miami-Dade County, they have lights out academic achievement. So real accountability, empowering parents, and there's been great movement there. And then finally, I think high school needs to be dramatically changed. The expectation should be college and or career readiness. And I know many people in this room are working on that. That's an exciting area that I think there could be dramatic improvement to connect young people's aspirations on what they want to do, make it easier for them to do it in really dramatic ways. And there's some states that are beginning that journey, but we're way behind other countries in that regard.
John, why don't you talk a little bit about that framing and how it applies to how you all are running Charter Schools USA, and talk a little bit, let's get into the ESA topic a bit, how you guys, do you feel optimistic about its continued expansion, a lot of expansion this year? And then I'd also like to tack on the concept of affordable private schools and what you all think about their prospect.
Yeah, so I think that when you think of school choice, the old idea was a public charter school, meaning that the funding at some level under a contract with a non-for-profit board, you had some rules sort of taken away in replacement with results, right? So that's basically the social contract, and that's been phenomenally successful nationally. There's obviously examples of failure, but typically those failures get shut down as they should be, and failure is learned from and success is replicated. That's a charter school story sort of nationally, and it's been successful. But obviously ESA as a voucher or as a funding source to a parent is, in my mind, the next logical step. This is not something that charters and public school choice advocates should be opposing to. They should be advocates for. And we've done that early on. We stepped in with the John Kirtley folks and like that early on and said, choice is choice. We want all parents, all incomes, all backgrounds to have the opportunity to go to not only the best school, but to allow those schools to start to see each other under what I would call healthy competition. Healthy competition is where schools share ideas, resources, but ultimately, if your school is not performing for families, there's a better option. Now, choice alone is not enough. It's not enough. I've always said that the frameworks for that choice have to be accountability. They have to be, known opportunities. Parents that don't have information, we have to provide that information. We have to give them good options. We have to educate them often on what those choices look like, because many of them are not sitting in a place where they really know what's available to them. At the same time, what we've done in Florida is really tried to be a part of this larger national coalition where the idea of choice, what's happening here in Tennessee, it's happened in Arkansas recently, out in Iowa, Texas is grappling with it right now, it's going all over the country, really is not about the labels of charter or ESA or any of that. It's about really empowering the parent as a consumer. I listened earlier to the panel on higher education, and I thought it was it's ironic that that basically all the panelists were saying the same thing, that we have to actually consider what parents think about higher education, and that the students are the customer. And I thought to myself, wow, how revolutionary. I mean, that's the basis of all free market economics forever, which is that there's a customer, there's a product, there's a service. And just now, our institutions, higher ed institutions, school systems, even large private schools, quite frankly, who've sat on their laurels for a long time, having to recognize during COVID, post-COVID, and who knows what else is coming, that if their product, if they're not delivering something better and different, if it isn't creating results that are measurable and can be replicated, then they need to feel the pressure of the market, not just the pressure of government or sanctions or rules. And that's what we do every day, is we try to work with as much as possible policymakers, governors, leaders all the time, and say, hey, if you do this, there's a whole bunch of us who are willing to come in and try it, do it, innovate, give us a little space. Innovation may have a few failures, it's okay. If they're measurable failures, they're understandable and they're quickly adjusted. And then take those successes. We have enough success at this point in this country, with what's in this room alone, to revolutionize education. Governor's right. We should be literally intensively upset all the time with the acceptability that this low standard, this low quality is okay for so many families every day in a highly competitive world environment. And America can and should do better. So I think we're just relentlessly committed to student success, not just in schools, but in life. And lately, right? Thank you for that. And I'll just say these last four words. Recently, we had to go through as an organization, right, with 10,000 team members, 80,000+ students. What are we going to look like the next 25 years? Because our 25th anniversary is coming up. Governor's coming. We're excited about it. And the answer is, yeah, we are in a 100-year game. but I don't want people thinking that 175 years from now is like when we're going to get there, right? Like it's constant relentlessness. And we came up with 4 words that best represent what we believe our mission is now, and that is to create strong minds and good hearts. Simplifying something down to a few words is extremely hard. As an organization, we have to focus on creating strong minds, good hearts. Each one of those words meant something for me as we put them forward, which said, in today's environment where we know social emotional health is broken in so many places. You saw the data earlier that Mike Moe put up there. It's compelling. We're dealing with it at a visceral level every day with families. We are also in the business of driving academic success, but I'm also in the business just as much as ever in driving the kind of character of human development and caring of others. Because if I just have smart kids who don't have a heart for society, for each other, for building family unit, then we haven't succeeded. So that's part of our mission too.
Excellent. Pretend you live in Illinois. Which some of us do. We actually have the founding mother of the charter school movement in Chicago here in the audience, just to make you feel better, John. She was also a revolutionary, Phyllis Lockett. She built the charter school system. And thanks to Phyllis, we have an April Montgomery, who leads the KIPP system, wildly successful KIPP system in Chicago. But thanks to Phyllis, we have, 15% charter students roughly in CPS today, and yet we are and tremendously successful academically and in life, and yet we are facing tremendous pushback. So any counsel to those of us living in less friendly environments, despite the data, about what we do?
I saw this interview.
Don't say move. Don't say move. Yeah, don't say move.
That's what I was going to say.
No, I saw the interview on CNN with the teacher union leader. She skipped over the charter schools for her kids and went right to private schools.
Yes, she did.
It's like, I think one of the strategies has to be you got to shame people that's shameless. And that union is incredibly powerful politically. It elected a mayor. And I think you need to call it out. That's the first step. And then, Bruce Rauner got elected, and he lost his hair, and he lives in Miami, and he lives in Florida now. He was run out of Illinois. But he worked the legislature as part of a compromise. The tax credit bill was passed, and it's alive still, and there's strong growing support for it. So in the states that resist change, you got to take your wins and build on it, I think. In other places where you have the opportunity to be big and bold, there should be encouragement to do just that. I think these policy reform is, put it on a spectrum, and there are states that are further behind, but they have the ability to make positive movement, and those that maybe have more options because they've started earlier, they need to continue to move forward as well. Can I mention one other thing as a policy, if a girl could dream here for a second? Our foundation is working state by state now to suggest that schools not allow for access to social media during the school day. You can access the internet, there's ways to curate the internet to make sure that you get high quality content. I'm not suggesting shutting off computers. I'm suggesting that part of the problem, and it came to mind, John, when you talked about good hearts, part of being a caring person is to have the resiliency to be able to think on your own, to be able to resolve disputes, to be able to learn from lessons, to have a fight and make up. All the things that a lot of the previous generation had more opportunity to do. This damn device, where you're staring at social media and you're getting bullied, particularly young girls, is weakening the next generation. So I don't know what impact it has on student learning. My guess is it's not good, but way too much time is being spent on social media in schools. And so a simple idea is to say, put the damn phone in the backpack.
1,000%. How do you feel?
I'm a big fan of that. In fact,
You guys do it?
Yeah, we just started at our one of our high schools in Aventura. I was walking in and I was looking, and as they walk in the class, they literally set all their phones in the box, like this, so each kid can see their book.
Yep.
The box goes to the side of the classroom. It sits over there, and the student and I asked the principal. I said, "Is it working?" He goes, "Unbelievable." He says, "We got a little pushback at first, but really, it's just not that radical." I'm sorry.
They're not staring at their phones.
Yeah, they turn it around
salivating.
backwards. But it's just not that radical. I mean, I think we're afraid. I really do. Like I feel like we're in the ground war side of this education revolution we're involved in, which is every day running schools with kids across all spectrums, all backgrounds. And what we're finding is that parents are hungry for leadership. Don't be afraid to take some risk. I feel like we're also afraid to be bold, to be thoughtful. If it's right, it's still right. Okay? Like right is like it's. I say this all the time. Like, since when did it become not okay to teach students wrong from right? We're literally so afraid because we don't know what right is anymore. That's like the world we're living in. I'm like, so is it right to bully other children? Is it right to be disrespectful to a teacher who and is a leader? Is it right to treat each other with disrespect or to cheat? We can go through a list of these things, and it's really not that hard to come up with core beliefs. And I think we're at this place when we talk about AI, when we talk about all the technology, and many of you are doing systems in some of our schools. We're a beta platform for many of your ed tech tools. But build those tools in a way where you're not afraid to take on the social challenges as well. Don't just bring me tools that give me better math results and better reading results. I heard it earlier. Take on social studies for high school. It's tough stuff, but somebody has to. If we don't, we lose. We lose, guys. So this is the time when leadership really matters like never before. And the last thing I'll say is you all could be and need to be more involved in the policy side. Governor Bush leads a thing called the Education Ed in Excel, Education and Excellence Foundation. And I've served on the board for years, and it's an incredible group of people around the United States, bipartisan, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter, that come in and put education reform #1 in their agenda. And it's no longer okay to be in the for-profit or nonprofit space and say, oh, but I'll leave the policy discussions, all that difficult, hard stuff to someone else. I encourage you to get involved in it. It matters. Leaders are looking for it. We need to fund the people who believe in it. School board races, state legislative races, governor's races, presidential races. All this should be the top issue in our country right now.
Okay, 1,000%. Yeah, it leads me to a perfect place to finish up on leadership. Jeb, you've been committed to bipartisanship your whole life. I think you genetically inherited that from your dad and everything else like that. We are certainly in a place where bipartisanship has almost been expunged from the English language, and that's very discouraging for many of us who believe that education is very much a bipartisan issue. On top of that, we've just, of course, endured this horrific terrorist act by Hamas, and we're seeing all of this activity on college campuses. It was a big conversation last night. I think it continues to be a big conversation in the halls. And I would just, it's a big question, but as we all reflect on the moral leadership being shown or not being shown by our university leaders on campus, I just would love, from your perch, any reflection you have on that and any advice you have for us to lead ourselves.
Well, as it relates to the elite universities, they've lost their way. They've just plain lost their way, and they basically take the best and the brightest, predominantly affluent people, kind of in the upper 10%, and they give them a chance to have a really nice network the rest of their life. If you start, Harvard doesn't measure its success by how well someone, when they start as a freshman, what kind of improvement they've had when they graduate 4 years later. They measure themselves by how hard it is to get in. And once you get in, nothing really matters anymore. And so this progressive mind speak that has replaced really focusing on having students achieve bigger and better things is quite dangerous, and it's in the elite world. If you go to, we have a business where we help metropolitan universities go online, RN to BSN, Masters of Education, MBAs. These are purposeful degrees. You immediately get a raise, and it's a low-cost way for universities that don't have big and fancy endowments to be able to have a recurring source of revenue. They don't have any of this crap at University of Northern Kentucky or FIU. They don't worry about what your pronouns are and all the stuff that goes on in these big elite universities. And so the leadership of Harvard and Penn, maybe they'll get fired because of the silence with threatening Jewish students on campus, which is going on today, right now. It's happening in many of these elite universities. But I think it goes deeper than that and broader than that. We need to recognize somehow we need to create an America again where we're all in it together, where you don't have this elite group of people that are living quite well, intact families, making a ton of money, that aren't connected to the aspirations of the other 80% in our country. And I hope, as a conservative, that I hope conservatives begin to lead that charge. I don't see it happening right now because my party, or conservatives, basically want to own the libs, and the libs want to advance this really weird progressive agenda that inculcates big corporations, the fancy universities, places that are so detached from everyday America. I'm not very optimistic about this right now, I'll just tell you that.
Thank you.
And if you expect Washington, D.C. and the next election to be the solution to this, wow.
Move. I think that's when you move. Right. All right. With that, let's everybody, if we can give a great hand to John and Jeb. Appreciate. Thank you.